These are the tales of the Skeleton Warriors.
Welcome back to Retro Wednesday, and happy Halloween. This is going to be a Halloween special here at the Tidarium here. This is Mike, and today we're going to talk about Skeleton Warriors 1994 toy line, and they did have a cartoon. We'll talk a little bit about that and a video game, but really, overall, this was a pretty cool toy line that actually didn't get past its first wave. This is only one wave of figures. We're going to talk about the entire toy line when it was released. I have everything except one item. Then I'll show some pictures of that, some pictures of unreleased stuff, but yeah, pretty interesting, exciting toy line for a happy Halloween. Coming up. First off, talking about the media surrounding the Skeleton Warriors, there was a 13-episode cartoon, which seemed pretty on par with other cartoons in the 90s, and it's a pretty interesting show and pretty interesting watch. Does kind of share some similarities to old stories, like the Power Star Crystal, whatever, gets split into two, the good and the bad, and of course that's where they get their powers and their looks and aesthetics from, but just an interesting toy line based off an interesting show. But then there was a video game. Now, the video game looks like a standard side-scrolling video game. It actually looks like one that I'd like to play. I see that it's on the PlayStation 1 and the Saturn and all that kind of stuff, so you might want to pick yourself up a PlayStation 1 copy and play it. But I might want to get my hands on a copy and play. It'd be kind of fun to check out that game, and it could be found for like 20 bucks, I think. So looking around. But anyway, yeah, some good media to support this toy line. So the first figure we're going to look at here is Oracula, like Dracula, Oracula, and yeah. So one thing I want to point out to this is he's got a lot of vac metallized chrome, gold colored vac metallized gold on all six of his arms. Like he's like General Grievous times two, or with an extra set of arms. But those pieces are almost always missing on the loose ones. When you see my loose one, you can see they're all missing. So I guess that's something that if it's loose, then it's probably going to be missing that. But pretty cool overall. This is a very interesting figure here, and all the stuff that's packed in there. So we're going to take a look at the loose one. Let's looking at the card back. These come with this bonus fold-out mini comic, which I don't have any of that stuff loose, and then new collectible, individually numbered figure. So I don't know. I don't see the number on this. So it's interesting right there. Looking at the back of this. So one thing you're going to see with the back of these is that they have all of the figures, the whole toy line more or less. I don't actually see the vehicles as a cross-sell in here, so that's something that I think is like a missed opportunity on this. But looking at it, still pretty cool. And I'm going to take this time as we go to try to pair up accessories to make sure I have the right accessories with my loose set. I actually watched a couple of videos of other people talking about this, and one thing that they point out the packaging variations. So there are some packaging variations with these, although it only had one wave. But look at how this shield is stored on the side versus stored right there. Now, I don't know, like the whole inside bubble is different to where all the accessories are moved around. And I don't know if people are like super going after all of the variations. I don't know which variation is more popular, but it's just kind of strange that they would have packaging variations on a very short run toy line. So that was intriguing to me. But of course, I'm not going after all this stuff. I actually just got all this stuff from a friend in a trade, and I was like, cool, I don't know anything about it, but I'll do a video. So here's a loose version of Arrakis, and a couple things. First off, now that I started messing with these guys, I think it's a pretty cool toy line. There's some really interesting concepts that they've got going on with this, and I think this figure is the fan favorite. I just see online, just seems like this one commands a little bit higher price than some of the other figures, which isn't much. Like most of them command 20 or less, and he's like 25. So it's really cheap line to collect for too. So pretty exciting that I can go back and get like loose ones, or I wouldn't even advise to buy them loose. Buy them brand new and just open them. That's pretty cool. But anyway, so this guy comes with a slew of things, and for some reason I ended up in my collection here having duplicate of the weapons and accessories. So that's kind of cool. But it does have this projectile over here, and that's interesting in itself. Probably shouldn't shoot it at the package there, but it shoots. And it also fits in this. I thought this was his too, but I don't see it in the package, so I'm going to see if it goes with someone else. But I'm probably going to display it with this, so that's kind of cool. And but the problem is stability. Like, this guy's got 6 arms, and I'm trying to get him to where he will stand on his own, and it's a bit challenging. So anyway, with that, he has this nice looking shield here, and that shield is, it's kind of like a spiderweb looking shield too. He is supposed to, like we saw before, supposed to have the vac metallized chrome bits on the sides of his head and all that kind of stuff, and he's also supposed to have vac metallized pieces on every one of his arms, which are missing. But still, you can kind of look and see what the figure looks like. Really cool looking figure overall. Lots of details. You can notice actual paint apps and stuff that are added to this. He's got like a little loincloth going on right there. Pixel Dan says this was supposed to be like a knockoff of Masters Universe in a way. So that's pretty interesting. But speaking of Masters of the Universe, not sure, but there's got to be some way to turn this guy into a Skeletor bone throne, you know? So all of the skeleton warrior guys are the bad guys, more or less. This is the Baron Dark figure, and he does look pretty cool. He's got lots of detail to him, and just like a ton of skulls for his shoulder pieces. I did go out of my way to make sure I had them standing, though. And he has a couple of interesting accessories. So he's the one that comes with this launching thing. So he comes with this, too. So he's got quite a slew of weapons. I think he comes with these two also. So he's got several weapons. He won't be able to hold all of his weapons. So that's kind of a downside to this. Now, one thing about this, when it comes to the weapons and accessories, the card back on the back does show everything that they come with. So that makes it a little easier to pair these up. But it also shows them as being like gold. And I think they were supposed to be vac metallized. And I think that the budget got cut. And they're not vac metallized. They're like green. As you can see, it's green instead of vac metallized. And I don't have the proper, I guess, projectile part that goes in there, but it's a sword looking projectile. So this is kind of a disappointment now that I see that they should have all been gold, vac metallized gold. That would have been awesome if that really happened. But here is the card back, and it's in the packaging. Looks pretty good, but it's kind of more fun to handle it in person here. So the articulation on these figures, it's just terrible articulation. They weren't going for articulation. They were going for it just to look really cool. And they were going for some super interesting poses, but again, that's not, to me, I think that it would have been better for them to not have crazy poses, have more articulation, but I guess they were concerned about skeletons being so small and thin that they wouldn't hold up, so let's just make them one piece, because you do get articulation in the thicker, bigger human figures. Now, he does have vac metallized toes here, and I don't see much else on the one in the package, so I think those are vac metallized eyes. Vac metallized eyes. So anyway, he does have a cape that comes with him and stuff. So you kind of want to look for the cape and all that. And then just kind of a fun figure overall. This is the main bad guy, and he's the one that caused the star crystal to split or whatever that thing is. But kind of fun figure. You kind of need him, and he does sort of ride the steed. We'll see him again when we look at the Skeleton Legion Warhorse. Next up, we're going to give a good look at Dr. Cyborn. You know, sounds like Cyborg. Yeah, story about this guy. He's in the first episode. He didn't want to get converted over into the Skeleton Warrior, but then once he did, he was like, oh, the power. It's so powerful. It's so great. So move out of the way. We'll bring him back in. But I think this guy is the one that comes up with a bunch of creations or something. I haven't watched the whole series yet. I probably will over time. But it's kind of cool. This is what it looks like in the packaging. And he's got this giant gun, which is there's a projectile there. He's got like a small mace, and he has this really strange looking gun that he probably made. Now, he does have a lot of vac metallized stuff on him, like a vac metallized jaw, and it looks like a vac metallized heart in there, and then his leg. So this is what really drew me to this when I saw these figures, all the vac metal and all that. And all this was supposed to have vac metal accents and stuff like that with it too. So that's kind of sad that we didn't get it with that, but of course, you know, cost-cutting measures and all that stuff. But they did put a lot into this line. It would have been nice if they would have gone the full way and vac metallized all that stuff. But nope, we got some cheap blue. We got the cheap blue, and we just got like bone white. So interesting there. So first of all, he's got, it looks like a strange cyborg of an arm right there, and then he has the gun right here, and his it's just terrible kind of articulation right there. Like that's all you can do with it. I did stick this in his ribcage. This looks like it could sort of hold his mace looking piece. So I thought, like, this seems like yeah, let's store the mace right here. It looks like it's made for it. So maybe there is weapon storage for everything. I just haven't found it all yet. But you can see his innards that are vac metallized innards right there. See if we can get it better on there. And then this vac metalized here. So this is gold, this is chrome, and then at the bottom we just have some gold accent foot, and it spins. So there's articulation on this foot, sort of, or maybe it just plugs in. I don't know, it's crazy. And then there are some peg holes at the bottom there. So very interesting. Does that say 1993? Nope, 1994. So it is 1994. It does have articulation in the knee, so there's the only point of articulation in a leg on any of these skeleton figures. But in the human figures, you've got a lot more articulation. So, and then his arm does this. This is weird. So I don't know exactly what pose you should put it in. I guess we should look at the back of the card and say, this is the pose they intended in this. Don't put it in any other pose. But still, overall, this is one of the cooler looking figures. And that extra 1 point of articulation makes it a little bit better. It does have a removable cape that I saw missing on, like I was just doing a look on eBay, and a lot of these are missing that cape. So still, again, I would buy these new in the package rather than try to put together a loose lot. That would be kind of hard, but still cool looking Dr. Cyborg. Next up we have Shriek, not to be confused with a lovable, adorable Shrek ogre, but this young lady, or I don't know, is she old lady? She comes with this shield, and looks like she's got sort of a blue dagger, which I don't have for the loose one, and then this scythe. You also have this static looking little figure there with wings. You notice that one's got wings. I got a loose one here that doesn't have wings, but we'll have a look at that here in just a second. But she's interesting because she does have some different stuff. A female character, which is pretty good that they included a female character right from the get-go with rooted hair. So, and it's the only one that has rooted hair. So I don't know if it doesn't come with a comb. And so with that, this has a few interesting things. This is really hard to make this figure stand. And if you look at the packaging art on the back, it shows them using this to help hold her up and help her stand. So they need the accessory to make this figure stand. So that's kind of crazy. But anyway, it does have a huge scythe right there. She has a loincloth looking thing right there. She does have a couple of purple coconuts covering some stuff. And then this shoulder piece here. So interesting overall. And you know, it's really interesting. I was talking about variations, and real quick, if I can show it without knocking everything over. She's got, on the packaged one, it's kind of like a green stone, and this one has like an orange stone on the head. So different packaging variation, or actually that's a product variation. So pretty interesting there with this small short run figure. Now I do think it's cool that they included a holster for the dagger. Of course my loose one didn't have it, so I am missing a lot of parts on the loose ones, and I'm not really too worried about it because I got a sealed set. But looking here, this missing the wings would be kind of cool. Looks like they just clip in here and articulate. So they clip in, and then you can just kind of move them up and down, or however you want to do it. So that's kind of cool and interesting. The figure itself has no articulation, aside from, I guess, the wing articulation. But overall, a pretty interesting figure. Comes with a companion piece. They probably had to do that just because she's smaller than the rest of them, and to make it up to it, make it worth it. But there's another companion piece we're going to see here in a little bit. But this is Shriek! All right, so this next one here, he is called Dagger. And this one does look kind of cool, too. Looks like a pirate, like arr, matey. We'll get into that here in a little bit. And stuff, all of this stuff that he comes with. But let's take a look at the packaging first and move this over. He does come with this giant gun, and he comes with this. We'll see that. So I think I've got most of his stuff. I think I might just be missing one piece from him, but yeah, like he has a strange looking dagger in there, which I don't have on my loose one. And then projectile. But I want to show something I haven't really talked about just yet. And these guys they're bad to the bone. So kind of funny. They're kind of calling the skeleton toy line bad to the bone. That's just pretty interesting. So getting into the loose figure, which is a little bit more fun. So he does have this pirate patch. Arr, and he's got this big old giant green cape on him. And that's kind of cool. It just kind of floats around there. He does have... If you really want to get to know some anatomy here, I mean, they got some pretty anatomically correct skeletons, although he's got fat bones. So if you ever hear someone saying I'm big boned, that's big boned right there. It's just really stocky looking bones and short and stocky. They don't hold their accessories all that well. So anyway, does look pretty cool overall. Just like the shortest of all the bunch here, and this gun laser pistol that actually has two different blades on it and a skull. So multiple paint apps on the same, just for an accessory. And then here we go with this. Now this, I believe, is, although there's a spring in it, it's just friction based. Yeah, I didn't do any damage there, but let's grab that piece real quick. There's a skull on the projectile too, so that's kind of cool. And it's really interesting too, because there's sort of like a cutout in it, so because it can only fit really one way, where there's a cutout for that jaw. So yeah, well, I mean, you'd think it'd fit on either side, the same cutouts there, but it just kind of slides right in there, and the bottom of the jaw goes in. That's interesting. Just kind of cool little things like that to go with these toy lines. I have fun finding those little interesting tidbits. Wish I had his dagger for the loose one. That would be so much fun to have the dagger. I do like how they include holsters, stuff like that we didn't see in previous toy lines. Okay, so getting into all of this, so looking at this good guys, those bad guys are done with. We're done with the bad guys. We'll have to come back to the bad guys when we get to the steed and that kind of stuff. But so looking at this Prince Lightstar here, the courageous leader, Legion of Light, is pretty cool looking figure overall. And with that, he is, well, his weapons and accessories are hard to get loose. So, well, you can say that about all of them, but for whatever reason, people are like trying to ask more for a loose one complete than for just go buy a sealed one and open it. So that was kind of strange just looking around. He does come with this interesting purple cape, and he's got this gun with a projectile. He's got a sword, Lightstar sword, and he's got like a little telecommunication device here. It does show on the back everything he comes with, and then he comes with a dagger also, a communication device. It's called the Skeleton Finder. All this cool stuff, and this was all supposed to be different colors and vac metallized. You can even see the figure showing. It's like a silver or vac metallized to it. So at the end, this figure is a bit disappointing compared to what they had originally planned, but of course they have to hit a certain price target or whatever. So the articulation on this figure, and the reason I grabbed a couple of loose ones of these, because I didn't have them, so I was just like, hey, let's see how cheap I can get some loose ones. You got out to the side here, you got some articulation, and so it's not like the other figures that are just static poses. You got waist swivels, you've got some ball jointed hips, and you've got about a 90 at the knee, so you have some articulation. So again, with the articulation, he can stand so much better. And not a bad looking figure overall. If you see him in a wild, you're probably like, I don't know who that is, or I don't care who that is, but now you know he's part of the Skeleton Warriors. And the skeletons, I think the skeletons are definitely the big draw to this toy line. And this is strange, but not really, because trying to sell the bad guys is, you got to make them cooler, right? So he got like a transparent little crystal on his chest, and some sort of modern technology around his head there. So anyway, that's Prince Lightstar. Let's move on to the other two good guys. So we got Grimskull here, who is the shadow jumping warrior of the Legion of Light. And so, yeah, he's a pretty cool looking figure actually overall. And so the story, I just watched that one episode, is basically he was trying to wrestle the star stone, whatever, back from the Baron, and it broke in half, and so he was infused with this skeleton warrior power here also, but he didn't turn into a full skeleton because he's good and the other ones are bad. So that's just the way it is. I mean, that's reality. He does come with a little companion piece, so, and what I'm doing is trying to like match them as I go here. I preliminary matched a few things up, but I'm like, can't remember what goes with what. But anyhow, this is some sort of a projectile kind of piece going on right here, and then can't really see that. So let's look at the back here. So he does have a skeleton finder. So do they all have the same skeleton finder? So that's something I don't know, because I don't have loose ones of that, and they hide it behind the packaging. And then of course they call his bad dog the skeleton canine. So his canine suffered a lot of skeleton stuff, more than he did. So let's look at this canine. So strange. Is the red part separate? I don't think so. I think it's molded in. So how does that one have the red molded in, but this doesn't? So the loose one. and no articulation whatsoever. So it's just like a statue. It's like a nice little throw in to make the figure worth a little bit more, I guess. But they would think that the main star good guys would sell themselves, and the figures are pretty decent. I mean, I would say, what are they, like Power Ranger level of figures? I don't know. So let's get into looking at this guy. So he has a crazy looking skeleton head, and without knowing anything about the series, you would think he's a bad guy, maybe the leader of the bad guys. But watching the show, he's a good guy. So he's got this gold skull right here and some purple right there. And his cape, I don't have a cape on the loose one. The cape's on that one there. But overall, pretty interesting looking. And so they have to do this extra little piece here to look like he's got his belt folded and it's got a flap hanging down there. This has to be manufactured separately and glued in place. And so the paint doesn't match the plastic. Again, when you do stuff like that where you paint something and then plastic, it might match really close when you sell it in 1994, but almost 30 years later, 28 years later, something like that, then it's not going to match. So that's just the way the world works. But anyway, pretty cool looking figure, Grim Skull. Next up, we have Yusak the Guardian, and he is commanding warrior of the Legion of Light. And so with this, it's pretty interesting how much stuff he comes with, seeing as how I don't have any of it for my loose figure, but still pretty cool overall. So you get this launching projectile gun, you get the finder. So I guess all the finders are the same, the skeleton finders, but that's what they look like. They have like a little sticker on it, and then got a nice silver gun. So that's silver. In the promo pics, they do look back metalized, but then again, everything looks better in promo pics. He's got like an axe. So he's got a bunch of stuff. Again, I don't see how he can carry all of this at once. And when looking at the figure, well, let's actually just look at the back real quick so we can kind of see something special. Light Star Crystal Fragment. So I don't know about that either. Shows a purple crystal, and he's got a orange crystal in his waist. So that's strange. But yeah, all of his stuff here does look back metalized in the pictures, but then again, it's not. Okay, so looking at this figure, he is just like the other human figures, the good guys, same exact articulation. Looks like a knight. He's got his knight armor and stuff like that, and very similar to the last one we just looked at, or the one we looked at first. So this is kind of cool here. He has a sidearm pistol molded in, which is strange they'd go through all that work molding it in. Why not just include one that tabs in? That would have been cool, just one that just tabs in. But then, of course, it'd be lost, and I wouldn't have it, so... he has a nice head sculpt, and almost looks like Man-at-Arms in a way, like Duncan. Maybe that's kind of the role he plays, but still pretty cool with some gold, red, silver accents and paint scheme. I don't know. I believe it's all cast in red, and then all the other stuff is painted. So, cool looking figure overall, and yeah, that is Yusak. Next, we're looking at the Skeleton Legion Warhorse, and so with this, it's pretty cool looking. It was $5, new lower price at wherever that is. And looking at the back, you can kind of see what all it comes with. So it doesn't come with a lot. It's got basically a figure, and he's got this, which doesn't match. This shows a black staff, and it's going to be red, but it's got sort of an axe with it, and it's shooting projectile, and yeah, some cool stuff that goes with it. I don't have that. We'll look at better pictures of the Skull Cycle here in a bit. But let's go ahead and get the horse over here. Between the horse and the box, they're holding up almost everything standing over there. So that whole display is just collapsing. But this horse, it's really hard to get anything to sit on it. So I did some work to get this guy to sit on it, and he sits on it okay. But he needs to hold on to, for dear life, he's holding on to this piece here that plugs into here, this axe. And so I see why these get bent up. But I don't know. This horse should have had at least one designed specifically to ride it, since they all have their own specific poses. But it's a cool looking horse overall. And so let's kind of look at what he's got going on. He's got some... It doesn't really have light piping, but it's just kind of a clear kind of crystal horn right here. Then he's got his ears, and all of this paint, I don't know if it's just because it's worn, it's used, but looks super weathered. And I think that's on purpose. I don't think it's just that worn out. I don't think this got played with that much. So Then the tail has some articulation to it in the back. We do have a nice, well-detailed saddle and well-detailed bones into everything, well-detailed bones into the horse. Now, I'm not sure if anatomically the bones of the horse are correct, but, you know, we're going to go with it. Nice red skull in the front. We got red skull knee pads. He's armored up. He can handle some stuff. You're not going to hurt his bones going into battle. He's empty, like an empty rib cage in there. Can't really see that, but there's his rib cage. So interesting overall. There is some hollowness, like right inside here, where you're not going to see it. It feels pretty solid, but they did introduce some hollowness here and there wherever they could. Now let's see about this action feature. Can we get this to fire? Yes, you push down on the front piece of the saddle right there, and you get it to fire. Push back in. And so that's really all there's to it. There's no articulation to this guy. He's literally just a statue of a horse. So there it is, Skeleton Legion Warhorse. So next we see the skull cycle, and it's kind of cool too. It's just like the Warhorse. It is kind of like the Warhorse in a way that it actually has a projectile with it. It does have some like rear fins that move, and it's got like a front piece that looks like it's got sort of a metal scoop kind of thing in there. But overall, it's a cool looking vehicle. It seems to be the hardest piece to acquire, actually. But as the hardest piece to acquire in the toy line, it doesn't go for much, like $50 at most sealed, and loose at like 20 or something, 20 to 40. But with it, this whole line is quite affordable, and it's pretty cool. They did put a lot of work into it, and it'd be kind of fun to have a little group of these for your display for Halloween. Next up, we have Unreleased. So there's a whole lot of unreleased stuff. I don't know much about them, and I didn't finish watching the series, so I don't know if these characters were in the series, were they planned for further episodes on this kind of stuff. And then there was a huge giant thing, skeleton thing, with wings and all that kind of stuff. So it's kind of sad that it failed, but on one hand, it's kind of fun that you can get the whole toy line at once. I like these small, obscure toy lines simply because of the fact that you can just snag them all up at once and for that price. And if you were to go further and like double the toy line with the second wave, then have a playset to go after, it would be a lot harder to get. But there'd probably be a lot more people interested in it if they carried it on, and more figures and more stuff would have attracted more attention. So what do you guys think about Skeleton Warriors from 1994 from Playmates, the ones that gave us TMNT, the Turtles? I think it's a pretty cool toy line. I actually kind of think they did a lot of things better with this toy line than they did with Turtles, but they didn't give it the support Turtles got because it didn't catch on like a craze like Turtles did. But they probably would have gone on and gone as far as they did with Turtles if this caught on at the time. But see, this is one of those toy lines that were missed by most collectors and a lot of kids at the time, simply because it was overshadowed by much other larger franchises. But still, it's kind of fun to take a look back at this toy line, especially on Halloween. So happy Halloween, everybody. From Tydarium Hanger, like and subscribe. Tydarium Hanger out.
It can't be. Yet I live. I live! Hush. What's wrong?
To play chicken, Baron?
Josh, Jen, grab me some polarizers out of that cabinet. Load, lock, and put them out by the ports while Justin helps me adjust the energy shields.
The powers shall be mine! That's it, young prince. Let the shadow darkness wash over your heart.
Baron, we have achieved immortality!
Picking on someone with only 2 arms. Not fair at all.
They have defeated us this day. I underestimated the power of their half of the crystal. me, I will spare no flame!